Maybe. There we go. Alrighty, you are live. Welcome live. Let's get Instagram. Welcome.
Instagram. Speaking
Welcome.
of Instagram, right?
That's
So,
just what I was going to say. Welcome
yeah,
back.
yeah, no kidding. So, welcome to all of our platforms. Yes, I am back on social media. I got it back. Very bizarre how I got it back. So I literally started a whole new account, like I was starting from scratch, and it wouldn't send me like the code to log in, and I kept not sending it. Finally, I grabbed my husband's phone and put his phone number in, and it goes, "Oh, we're going to review your," and like,
Review your appeal.
yeah, and then boom, I was back. I got last Wednesday, I got the email that my social media was back, so I'm back. But welcome to social media, right? Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, Rumble, X, iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify. There's a bunch I'm missing because you've got us. Oh, you even have us out on Pinterest, right?
Yep. So
So,
so we end up and have a Pinterest page. We have iHeartRadio. We have Amazon Music. We have pretty much, I think, like 16 different platforms. So if you can't find us,
yeah,
we're everywhere.
right.
But yeah, we're happy to have all of you. Happy to have the follows. Happy to end up and have any of the support that we can end up and get from all of our viewers and
Absolutely.
listeners.
And listeners, absolutely. So, for those of you that don't know us, I am Coach Sherri, and you can find me on social media by Step by Healing Step on Facebook and Instagram. And let's see, what am I on X? Because it's too that's too long of a name, so it's healing into step into healing. Some I don't even know what my X is. That's funny. But anyway, uh, I am a coach. I'm a wellness coach, and I've been on my own journey for over 4 years now. So, introduce yourself, Becky.
Absolutely. So I am obviously Becky. Becky Niles is what I am on most platforms. If you don't find me under I am Becky Niles, whether that be on TikTok, then I am. You can find it under Beyond Nutrition Community because either of those platforms, you will find me. So yeah, I have been a coach since 2019. I first started in the keto and the carnivore space, and I have evolved and grown out of that space into everything beyond just the nutrition. Um, I founded the Beyond Nutrition Community, which is a free community. So anyone that is listening to us currently that needs a community, we do end up and have time throughout the day that coaches are in the house, if you will. They're in the meeting space because we also have a third coach, which typically you end up and you see the first Monday of the month in our roundtable. Coach Sly, love her dearly, love you. But all three of us coaches end up and hold space in the Beyond Nutrition community where people can come, they can ask questions. We also have daily support meetings where people just gather and we talk about anything and everything under the sun. Today we even talked about football because the Big Ten championship was yesterday. So it's or Saturday. So it's not always just nutrition focused, but it creates that sense of warmth, sense of being able to be around people that are, sharing the journey and sharing the process with you. Some people are doing it as a, full elimination. Other people are just looking at it through a health and even weight focus, exercise focus lens. So we are in that space that, like I said, was the founded community. And I have been coaching for multiple other influencers as well as myself. But yeah, it's been an ongoing process over the years, and we're happy to welcome anyone into it.
Absolutely. Wow. And of course, please don't forget to like and subscribe and comment. We are not sponsored by anyone. We're just two women that we have a message, and we also know what it's like to be in your shoes, and we're still in your shoes. So, it's just real honest conversation. We don't, like I said, we're not sponsored by anyone or anything like that. So anything you can do to help the algorithms, that would be fantastic. So speaking of, I'm going to transition us. So we're going to kind of dive into something tonight that might change the way you think about food forever. What do you think, Becky?
Absolutely. It's one of those that for anyone that, probably seen the title for tonight was like, wait, what is this? What is that have to do with me, right? What is, chrononutrition and why does it even matter to me? And that's where I was back in 2021, right? Before I started studying 2020 actually, because I started studying circadian rhythm in 21 and actually got certified as a circadian and quantum biology. So with that being said, chrononutrition and circadian disruption ends up and happens, right? It's one of the biggest wellness shifts that I personally have seen, but I've also seen it in clients. I've seen it in other, friends, colleagues as well. So chrononutrition is eating by the clock, essentially. When we end up and we shift our eating, and there's a lot of science, right? Chrononutrition is the science of eating in alignment with circadian rhythm. So your body runs on this 24-hour clock. It controls your hormones, it controls your digestion, your metabolism, and even your repair. And a lot of people don't factor that into their wellness, right? That's why our community is called Beyond Nutrition, because it's one of the biggest shifts that will make the biggest impact in your journey, in your body. And it is very individualized, but there's a lot of non-negotiables that are straight across the board for a lot of people, right? And that's where and how your body is going to respond to the timing, the light, and the rhythm. And that essentially, in a nutshell, is the condensed version of chrononutrition. But your body is programmed. And a lot of times, because of everything that we have going on, right? You hear it in the no carb space, low carb, no carb, whatever you want to end up and call it, elimination space of eating like ancestors, eating like, but we're not in the environment that our ancestors were. We are not in the environment that I'm attempting at using politically correct terms here. Other cultures, right, lived in, right? And so you may end up and be in front of a computer. I'm in front of a computer right now. Yes, I'm sitting in red light to try and help with that circadian rhythm. But let's face it, right? We are inundated in a environment that is not like our ancestors were 100 years ago. So when our digestion and our energy and our repair, right? A lot of people are sitting in their beds and they're scrolling their phone at night, right? That is disrupting your hormones. So that's not allowing the repair to happen overnight like our ancestors or like those, different cultures would have done, right? Lights out, years ago would have meant complete darkness. And they weren't, maybe they had fire, right, to stay warm or have light, but they definitely weren't, watching football or watching who knows what else.
Die
Hockey.
Hard. I watched Die Hard
Die Hard this
all the
weekend.
movies. I was like on a marathon of Die Hard
Yeah.
movies this weekend. So there we go. We'll throw that in because Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
If you say so. I haven't watched them, so I'll take your word for it.
Oh my. Yeah. But I guess what we're saying is when the timing of when you eat really does matter. I know that both of us are living proof of that because at different times of the day, your body's designed to handle food differently. And we can we can totally use me. We can start out about in the mornings. So in the mornings, your body's more insulin sensitive, right? And for those people, and I was one of them, and I think you were too, Becky, where it's like, I'm not hungry in the morning. I'm not going to eat. I'm not going to eat till noon. And never knowing what that was really doing, until I started wearing a CGM. And I would get up, not eat breakfast, I'm not hungry, and I would watch my blood sugar continue to rise, and it would keep rising horribly until 12, 1 o'clock. And so that was definitely not the thing to do, right? But it also taught me to when I needed to eat. And you know what? Breakfast really is the most important meal of the day.
Yeah. And that's where, when you're looking at, not only the blood sugar control, but stronger insulin sensitivity and also the leptin signaling, right? It goes beyond just what you're eating, to what you're doing.
Mhm.
And when you are, waking up, and a lot of people even have that dawn effect or dawn phenomenon, whatever you want to call it, with the blood sugar, they're not going outside and seeing sunrise. They're not going outside and doing the grounding. Grounding reduces the inflammation. But for many of us, I would say us northern folk, like Coach Sly and I, but you've been having very similar temperatures down in Texas is what we do. Not near as cold as Sly's. But the other thing with the cold exposure too is the fact that when you are exposed to cold, that will also uptake some of that glucose, right, out of the bloodstream and put it into the muscles. The body wants to end up and use that.
Yeah.
So people that even have low blood sugar in the morning, they need to end up and be careful with going outside. But um going outside and doing the grounding, going outside and getting that sunrise, it does end up and create more natural cortisol rise instead of this large peak. But when we see sunrise and when we see UVA, there's other hormones in play, such as, serotonin and dopamine and, the HPA, HPG axis of the body. And so all of this has to do with the cells. And in the morning and in the early afternoon, these cells are going to naturally be more sensitive. The glucose is going to move into those muscles. The liver is going to be more efficient, right, about using it. So less of that blood sugar, or less of the sugar, is going to end up and stay in the bloodstream. And therefore, right, it's going to end up and create a little bit lower insulin that is going to not make us store it as fat, right? But when we also have this stronger insulin sensitivity, so people that are leptin sensitive or leptin resistant, they're leptin resistant before they're ever insulin resistant.
Mhm.
And so that's why the hormones are playing such a pivotal role in all of this, is because if you fix the hormones, the other areas that a lot of people, right, the dietary camps end up and want to just look and single out food, right? Insulin has a job, and your body needs to be receptive and use the hormones properly, not suppress them. And so insulin's job is to move that sugar into the cells. Well, your cells end up and have these different, I know people that are listening on the listening platform can't see me talking with my hands, but your cells have receptors all over them. And if those receptors get, blocked, or those receptors aren't, able to take in what they need to end up and take in, then that's where we end up, we create this, metabolic conditions. But insulin, it can work in very small amounts. So it's not that we have to chronically or continuously, right? We're not talking about eating the pizza and eating the carbs and the Twinkies and, the
Right.
ultra processed foods. We're talking about being able to use and produce what we end up we need without creating the inflammation, and ultimately lowering our risk for insulin resistance, because we are creating a body that has improved signaling.
Right.
And so going back to your point in not being hungry, right, in
Mhm.
the morning, again, that is a stress hormone response. And that's because we're not getting leptin, proper leptin signaling as well, which leptin has to be able to dock in the brain, right? We're really simplifying this for anyone that is listening, but leptin has to end up in dock and tell our body, hey, we have energy to use. But if you're constantly bombarding it, right, it's not going to end up and get, and by that I'm meaning cortisol. If you're constantly in this, sympathetic state and you're never getting into the parasympathetic, you're never training your body or training your brain, hey, I am safe, I am fed, you can burn fat tonight, right? Then it's going to end up and constantly have this elevated cortisol, and you're going to be waking up at night. You're going to be wanting a snack at night. And that's where, you and I were, before we hit go live, we were discussing the fact of nighttime snacking.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, so I'm going to take it and kind of twist it too here for a minute. So let's say that we are very good at eating breakfast within 30 minutes to an hour upon waking because of that cortisol, the morning dawn effect, all of that factors in. And so if I'm waking up and in 30 minutes I'm having, let's say, bacon, eggs, and avocado, right? That is what is going to give me energy. It's going to, slow my blood sugar down so it can utilize the energy. But if I have that same thing, let's say I have the eggs, bacon, and avocado at 11 o'clock at night, right? What that does is my body is already saying, hey, it's bedtime, and I'm slowing down to rest. And so that food is going to set in your stomach and not digest well. And then you're bloated, you're restless, and so there's, again, the timing factor goes back into it, and knowing what hormones are doing what throughout the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, well, and not only, even though that is a good meal, right? It's a very, in proper macro meal, right? We'll put it that way. When you're creating this circadian disruption, you're eating it late at night. The other thing that goes into play is the gut microbiome. And so this is where, it gets a little bit crazy, right? Because your gut also runs on that 24-hour clock. So your microbiome shifts as the day goes on. And that's one, like you said, is why you're getting bloated, is because it has shifted. But it also, the way that it handles carbs earlier in the day. So, it performs different, but it also performs a repair at night. And if you're feeding it food and you're creating this disruption, then you're desynchronizing, right? You're creating, or also known as gut dysbiosis. You're desynchronizing, and we work with clients in other areas where their circadian window is a little bit different than ours. And so that's why, even if you say eat within 30 minutes to an hour of being up. I just talked to a client the other day and she's like, well, I'm normally up at 5:30, 6 o'clock. Sunrise isn't until 7. Do I eat within that hour of being up? Well, based on her individualized aspect of her day, yeah, she needs to end up and eat, because she also lives in the far north. So their daylight's a lot different, but it's more in regards of the hormones, right? If she doesn't eat, then she's running on those stress hormones, and then that's gonna lead to constipation. A lot of people don't factor that in. Like you said, they just feel like they're not digesting or feel bloated, but also constipation. And a lot of people want to reach for a supplement, where if they just align their meals a little bit differently, that's going to end up and help with the inflammation. It's going to help with that constipation. Weight gain is also another factor. So if you shift your meals to earlier in the day, that's going to end up and also help protect the gut. But the gut is going to expect darkness at night, right? It's going to expect, can't even talk tonight. It's going to expect that darkness, and it's going to expect daylight. So it is a secondary circadian signal. Your eyes and your skin are your first. But the other thing that a lot of people don't look at as far as gut is melatonin. Melatonin, which your body ends up and makes by seeing sunrise, but your gut also ends up and uses that as a gut protector. So I can't tell you the countless times that I've heard people say, I have leaky gut. I have, X, Y, and Z, right, happening with my gut. And most people just think that, melatonin is for sleep, but really it's made in the gut in large amounts, and it protects the gut lining. It regulates that microbiome. It helps also with gut inflammation. So people with IBS, hello, I ended up and I had it. But I never really looked at how the gut, and because, I had disrupted sleep. I had, my nights, there were some nights I slept 4 hours. There was some nights where, I woke up through the night, and I never made that correlation between, my gut and what was happening overnight. And so if you have less of the late night eating, right, then you're not going to suppress that melatonin, because when you eat late at night, you raise the cortisol, you raise the insulin, which suppresses the melatonin and the leptin. So, late night eating, blue light at night, looking at your dang phone, right before going to bed, all of this increases inflammation and suppressant. And so that, IBS or IBD, it can also end up and create flares. So no matter, how many biohacks you end up and you want to put in there, as far as, red light to the gut or shine in your belly to, natural sunrise, you're still going to end up and worsen those symptoms.
Yeah.
And so, that is why when we talk about, eating in the morning, it's not just to eat, in the morning or to shift. Yes, there are studies out there that talk about circadian eating and talk about shifting that to, earlier time restricted eating, and how that resets the clock, but also morning sunlight resets the brain clock. It synchronizes the gut. It also anchors things like the leptin, the insulin, and all of that. So it definitely does end up and make a difference.
It definitely does. I mean, if you think about it, when you wake up in the morning, if you get that, hey, let's go. That's cortisol waking you up, right? Cortisol isn't bad. It gets a bad rap, right? But that is your wake up, right? Let's get going. Let's get moving. And so, that's kind of when, especially when you see the sunrise, right, and you get that sunlight hits your eyes and the cortisol and everything, and it says let's go and let's move and let's get the day going. And then you've got your midday, right? And oftentimes, the testosterone kicks in and it stays elevated into the midday and so forth, and supporting your energy and your focus and your drive. And the growth hormone, there's a whole, there we have growth hormones that is low during the day, but your body uses the nutrients, right, to build and repair. That's what that growth hormone does. And then you have your serotonin, right, that rises in daylight and activity and stabilizes your mood and supporting digestion. And that's why it's always good to go for a walk after you eat, right after lunch, and it kind of makes you calmer and everything, which I try to go out every day at lunch after I eat. I'm getting no sunglasses, no nothing. I'm getting or I'm sitting in my car with the window down, and I'm getting the light for the natural day. Makes you calmer and happier, right? That's that serotonin. But then the melatonin kicks in, right? Because light is starting to fade. I see the sunset, and it's preparing my body to sleep. That's what melatonin is. This is why I have on my blue blocking glasses right now, because I don't, with all this light going on and around me, I don't want my body to get the misinformation that it's time to wake up, because in actuality, it's time for me to shut down and go to sleep soon. So with leptin, though, that rise in the evening is telling your brain you're full, right? So eating maybe a lighter dinner helps that leptin do its job without that overload. And, we've talked about this, Becky, especially this time of year with all these holiday parties and stuff. There's a reason why you feel like ick,
Right.
right?
Well, and that's also why people are getting sick, right? They end up
Yes.
and they think that it's, just because it's wintertime that they're getting sick, but in reality, one, we don't have UVB, right? But we're also eating more ultra processed foods, right?
Mhm.
You're also, in regards of this holiday eating, right? The topic of tonight. And if anyone has questions of
Yes.
anything that we are talking about, definitely put them in the chat. Um, we'll end up and answer any questions or, topic um, related to this that you may want us to expand upon, because I know this is a lot of information that we're trying to end up and shove into tonight. But eating can create this chrononutrition disaster, if you will. But I will give you some swaps and I will give you ways to fix it. It's not just of, holidays end up and suck for this, right? It's
Yeah.
okay, but how do I end up and I navigate this? And so the festive of the season ends up and hits, as a rule, right, once a year. Even though it typically is now starting, it seems like in October instead of, it was always around like the beginning of December. Well, now it's turned into Thanksgiving and it's even backed up to Halloween. But um
Mm.
things that end up and can create this, the heavy meal at night, right? The constant grazing, walking around at, a company party and constantly doing that grazing if you're not careful. Sugar and alcohol, right? Artificial light at night can broken sleep. A lot of people end up and, are up past bedtime because they're having, an office evening party, and then they end up and they skip the morning light. So all of this holiday festivities can end up and lead to blood sugar swings. It can lead to energy crashes. That's why people will end up and feel achy. They'll feel miserable. They'll feel fluish, right? Increased cravings the next day. If you've ever noticed when you go to, things like this, of a holiday party or maybe have baked goods, a lot of people will say, well, I fell off the wagon and, it opened the floodgates. Well, it's because of these blood sugar swings and these crashes that are creating the craving the next day. So unless you're very metabolically flexible and able to handle that, right? And then the poor sleep leading to it, where yes, as you said, the leptin isn't able to dock and tell us, hey, we still have that energy and our waist and our hips to end up and burn. Then
Right.
it's trying to end up and seek the food. So what can you end up and you do as a swap for this during the holiday season? Eat your largest meal midday. So even if you have the evening party to go to, you're not eating a large meal. Or if you say have a 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. holiday party to go to, eat before
Mhm.
you go, eat an early, dinner. But make sure that you are, also stopping eating 3 hours before bed. So
Yes.
maybe you end up and you go and you just sip on, some sparkling water, or you have, a little bit of something, right? Not the dessert typically, right? Save those for earlier in the day if you are going to end up and indulge in something like that, because I'll be honest, I am metabolically flexible enough that there are times where I may end up and have a holiday cookie or, a holiday dessert. We had Thanksgiving with my husband's family this last weekend. And, I ended up and I had foods that I normally wouldn't. But the difference is I fed myself through the day, right? I ended up and I had good quality meat. I had, vegetables and all of that. And so I wasn't tempted to go back for a second piece. I wasn't tempted for it's still sitting on my counter and, I'm not tempted by it. That is the difference. But keeping your meals within this window. So whether, that's eating breakfast within an hour and then stopping your last meal within that 3 hours before bedtime, that is enough of a fast. A lot of people think they have to end up in push fasting, but that gets into a very negative eating disorder mindset of where, oh, I didn't eat good, so I must end up in fast.
Right.
And that's not the way to train your body. Your body ends up and holds some of these, emotions and these memories. So the other thing that you can do is make sure that you are hydrated. Hydrate well before, and after these feasts. Make sure that you're getting minerals, make sure you're getting electrolytes, because that's the other thing I see with people is, they may end up and have, a high carb or a high sugar food, but then it's throwing their electrolytes off. And so then they feel, fluish from that. Um, go for a walk, right? End up, and if you can't go for a walk after, the festivities, you can always go to the bathroom and in the bathroom stall, do some squats. That's one of my colleagues and we talk about it all the time of doing bathroom squats after, some of these higher carb meals or, but that alone is going to end up and help with that bloating. It's going to improve your sleep and stabilize those cravings of blood sugar too.
Absolutely. Well, and too, I mean, if everybody else around you is drinking, there's a reason why you can't have, some sparkling water, some herbal teas, right? Because your body still knows what time it is. Like you're not fooling it. um, and so that kind of helps as well. Don't be afraid to say no, right? That's the biggest thing in all of this too, is people are well intended to say, hey, try this. Oh, have this. Oh, this is why aren't you? Oh, you need to gain weight. Oh, you're looking too thin. People want to help, right? And there's nothing wrong with saying no to food pushers, right? But we haven't even touched on the stress side of things when it comes to hormones.
Yeah.
So, any thoughts on that? Because that's a big factor as well.
Well, and that's where if you are constantly in this, sympathetic state, right, it goes back to the hormones that you're stimulating with that. And so anything that you can end up and do to get into the parasympathetic, right, is going to be beneficial. So, even just simply doing some breath work before you eat, that's one of the biggest things that I talk to clients about even, we're so rush. And a lot of times we aren't supporting the nervous system.
Mhm.
So, doing like a 5 slow box, breathe in, hold, exhale, before eating. I mean, a lot of times people aren't paying that close of attention to know, if I just end up and sit there while other people are talking and I do, breathe in, hold, and then exhale, they're not going to have a clue, right? It's not like I'm, doing anything crazy. You can also activate the vagus nerve by, your eyes. So if you look clear to one direction, don't move your head. But if you just look and hold it and then end up and look, the opposite direction, that actually, the optic nerves will also stimulate the vagus nerve as well. So there are different things that you can end up and do. Magnesium bath before going to bed. So say you end up and you go to this holiday party, you've, been up late, take a magnesium Epsom salt bath. If you don't have a bathtub, a foot soak works too. You can end up and do that a couple times per week. But otherwise, there's different things like even legs up the wall pose or, I talk to people a lot about body scanning. So if you're laying in bed, it's kind of that sleep anchor because if you are overstimulating the cortisol and you are creating this, dysfunction, you have to downshift the nervous system. And so even if you are just laying in bed and you do the body scanning, right? Doing your slow breath work, but you scan the body and you relax your shoulders, you relax your arms into the mattress, just go and scan the whole body. That's all going to end up and help with cortisol and help with that stress side of things, because I get it, right? There is so much going on. There's so much people are trying to holiday shop. They're trying to do the parties. They're trying to do family gatherings. And a lot of times it's not only, the wife side of the family, but the husband side of the family. And, it does end up and get very overwhelming. And so that's also where transitioning your light in the evening, right? Lowering that lux of light, keeping the warm tones, right? The ambers, the reds, the firelights, the salt lamps, those type of things, not overhead lights after sunset. All of that is going to end up and help. And then signing off of screens, TVs, computers, cell phones, all of that, 60 to even 90 minutes, if possible, before bed. That is going to help with down regulating the nervous system as well. So you will start to end up and see immediate melatonin signals once you start to end up and incorporate even just some of the circadian side of things. It truly does end up and make a difference. And once your body gets in the habit, right? This is again where I talked about there's some of the non-negotiables that everyone can end up and do. And that's where if you create a solid bedtime routine, I don't care whether you live even clear up north, right? Or maybe you're further, south. If you create a solid bedtime routine, and your body will start to end up and anchor on that. Just like it anchors with the sunrise, and just like it ends up and it anchors the food signal, it also can anchor with the evening routine, and you will start to notice.
I'm yawning because my body knows.
You will start to notice.
You, Becky.
Yeah, you'll start to end up and notice that the body is trained that way, essentially, right? The cortisol down regulates at night. The melatonin upregulates, the leptin upregulates, all of this, and that increases that deep sleep. So you will start to get better sleep. It's not that our bodies are broken, right? I guess that's summarize all of this, right? Our bodies are designed to eat with the sun, burn fuel during the day, repair and burn fat at night. And when we try to end up and flip that order, our hormones fight against us and our goals fight against us. So if you're not seeing, right, the goals that you are chasing, then looking at some of this, circadian side of things, and looking at the chrononutrition and how it truly does end up and play a role. It's not just a trend, but it is actually returning to our basic biology, right? Our basic biological clock that we end up when we run on. And the gut, it doesn't just respond to the foods that we consume, but it responds to the light, and it responds all as a system. So light needs to hit your eyes, it needs to hit your skin, and food needs to end up and hit your gut.
Right. Well, and I was going to add a point to what you said earlier. We had a challenge in the BNC community, and what was the challenge called? I'm drawing a blank.
Better than yesterday.
Right. And one of them was putting your phone down at night. And do you know that was some of the hardest for the members that were taking part in this challenge? That was like the big, like, oh my goodness, they really fought that. And they didn't realize how much that affected them. And with my, 3-week hiatus on social media, the first couple days, I constantly was going on my phone to go onto social media. It had become a habit. Like it surprised me that even my thumb knew right like where to go on my phone where the app was supposed to be. And it kind of woke me up like, oh my goodness, like how much am I really on more than I realized, right? And so with my 3-week hiatus, that was not my choice, but um, it still was a good downtime to get me off of social media. But the I think the big takeaway is, like I said when we started, there's a dance with our body's clock. And when you eat in that rhythm, and the more you'll nourish your body, and things will start improving your energy, your mood, your sleep, your metabolism, like all of it. And I I was a big proponent of when you hear people say you got to get some sleep and you're sitting there going, I don't know what you're talking about, right? um, and going down the beyond, um, now those are non-negotiable. Like it's
Mhm.
crazy how much unless it's pouring down rain at lunch, you will find me outside. Becky knows that I'm on the phone with her on my lunch after I eat, and she knows that I'm getting that natural. It is that important, right? It
Mhm.
is, wearing these, Becky setting in her red light. These are non-negotiables because you can do it and then stop, and you'll see your body doing kind of a downtrend, and then
Mhm.
add it back in. I mean, that's a good little, test to do.
Right. Yeah, it definitely ends up and tells how important it truly is, right?
Mhm.
Um, and how quick it can end up, and that's the biggest thing is we're not looking at what are we doing for, the next 30 days or the next 90 days, right? We're looking at what are we creating as a lifestyle, and that is what we are looking at is this is sustainable, right? This isn't just something that the next diet we're going on or the next, fad, right? This is creating a sustainable lifestyle to see the results and to see the health that you're seeking.
Absolutely. If you are curious and you want to know more, you can join us on the BNC community. You have access to not only Becky, myself, but also Coach Sly. We have a lot of meetings throughout the week. We're getting ready to make some changes going into the new year that Becky and I are kind of in cahoots talking about. Just so stay tuned for that. That's going to be some exciting thing. But if you go to www.bnccommunity.com, you can put in the code free and you can join us for free. That's right, free, because we feel that going beyond is so vitally important that we want you to come join us. So if you've got questions, you can definitely put it in the chat. You can find us on social media, or you can join us on the BNC community.
Sounds good. And thank you. I don't see any questions for tonight. So thank you for listening and all of the listening platforms. Welcome to Tuesday and leave us some feedback. Let us know that you're following us. Let us know you're listening. Even if you're watching us as a replay, we still end up and we support all of you. So please support us in return. Have a wonderful evening, and we will see y'all next week.
That's right. All right. Thank